Hello, my name is Glenn Dyer, and you are watching a Dyer-Situation. Today I'm seeing Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Why is it called a Star Wars story, though? Like, couldn't it just be like Star Wars Rogue One? Or simply, I don't know. Yeah, Star Wars Rogue One. I think most people would get it if you don't put a number next to it. Like, why is it a Star Wars story? I don't know, it seems a little childish. I suppose this is a family-oriented series, but I don't know. Family-oriented series where people get limbs chopped off with laser swords. But anyway, so apparently this is explaining the story of how the Bothans who died got the plans for the Death Star. So, cool. In my personal opinion, I do not think this is a story that needed to be elaborated on. I got the idea. They fought and died for the plans, and now they have the plans. Like, I think the more interesting story has already been told, but then again, I don't know. With proper writing, you could probably elaborate on it. What really worries me, more than anything else, is that this is, of course, the beginning of the expanded universe of Star Wars. From now until the end of time, there is going to be a Star Wars movie every single year. Maybe two. Sometimes in a new trilogy, sometimes a total spin-off, sometimes a sequel to a spin-off. And it won't end. Funny thing is, back in the 80s, couldn't get enough Star Wars movies. They'd come out every 4 or 5 years, and you're like, wow, Star Wars! I wish they made this every year! And now I think most people who said that are really regretting it. It's like, oh my god, they're never going to stop now. We've opened up the floodgates. It's gonna be just as bad as Marvel. It's owned by the same company as Marvel, so you bet your ass it's gonna be pumped out at about the same rate. Oh no, and each one more mediocre than the last. That being said, I'm sure this one will be alright. Maybe even a little fun. As I said, these Marvel/Star Wars movies, they never really sink to levels of bad. I mean, in further reflection, I think The Force Awakens isn't as great as I thought it was, but I still don't say it was a bad movie. Like, I do wish they did their own thing a little more. In hindsight, I wish. But, I don't know, with this, they aren't remaking anything, so maybe it'll be okay. I don't know. Let's see it. It was okay. Overall, just as your basic summer blockbuster, I know it's not summer, but as your basic blockbuster action film, it's alright. But there are many, many problems with it. Many. I don't know if you know this, but when I'm watching a film, if there's something really big that I want to talk about in the review, I basically extend a finger. That's the count. Normally, at max, I've gotten to about 2 fingers. Like, 2 different things I definitely need to mention. I got to 5. Technically more. With this movie. Just, Some of them are little things, some of them aren't. Let's start with a littler thing once. There's no boffins in there. I mean, if there are, where the hell are they? It's a very famous line, many boffins died to get us these plants. But when we see the fighting, I'd say 99% of the people down there are people. They're humans. Unless a boffin looks exactly like a human, there ain't no boffins. I mean, there was this little dumpy guy. Is he the boffin? She should have said a Boffin to get us these plans. So, right off the bat, kind of didn't match up. But, you know, that's kind of a nitpick, I guess. It's just a little thing. It's literally one line that it's messing up, right? That's one. But, there's others. I really hope that nobody in the future watches these movies chronologically. Like, if you think watching the prequels before the original trilogy is bad, try fitting in Rogue One in between 3 and 4. Oh god. Please don't do that. For one thing, it totally devalues the cause in A New Hope. What do I mean by that? So, the main plot here is that, there's this, our main character is the daughter of this guy who's basically been roped by the Empire into building the Death Star, right? He's their lead architect. And the daughter, the daughter goes off on her own adventures and eventually gets roped in by the Alliance into, contacting him because this, rebel, Imperial pilot, defected, and, he says that there's this machine, so they want to investigate the machine and stuff. So, of course, it's the Death Star. And eventually she finds out more and more about this, and at one point finding out that he hid a secret weakness on the Death Star. A weakness specifically so they could blow it up, right? He said, the reactor, if you hit it with something, it'll blow up, and I made a specific way for you to hit it. Right? This one thing completely devalues A New Hope. A New Hope where they started from nothing, just a tiny little bit of hope, and somehow run with it. The whole idea was that they had no chance. like C-3PO's line, the chances of this happening are some super high number to 1, you know, never tell me the odds. Like, that was the whole point. It was impossible. But now, the whole air vent thing, the exhaust port, that was purposeful. That was there so they could destroy it. I would just imagine that if somebody watched this movie before first seeing A New Hope, they would watch A New Hope and they'd be like, well, yeah, of course they survive. I mean, why wouldn't they? The head architect was on their side. Like, he could have probably programmed something into the base software, where if you transmit a certain number frequency, it causes the place to blow up. If anything, he made it harder for them. But, and here's the thing. That exhaust port? I know people complain about it, like, why is there this gaping weakness in the Death Star, you know? And I'd like to counter with this. What makes you think that's a weakness? Really? It's an exhaust port, right? An exhaust port to a machine, to a giant death machine with a giant laser the size of a moon. And its exhaust port is about this big. On this tiny little thing, surrounded by trenches with guns. And the only way to get it is to run along these trenches and somehow not get blasted by all the guns. How is that a weakness? Not to mention that the only way for it to work would be if somebody shot a laser, or a torpedo or whatever, it went in, took an immediate 90-degree turn, and went completely straight down, without curving, without touching any of the sides, and hit the reactor. Hit the reactor dead on from there. That is the only way. In other words, the only way it could be accomplished is with magic. Which, you know, I guess you could say, well, he planned around that. You know, he knew they had Jedi, and I'd say, in what way could he have done that? Nowhere in this movie does he demonstrate any knowledge that they have a Jedi, nor does he suggest that they use one, nor could he know that. Like, literally, he designed a weakness that is impossible to get to. Like, literally impossible, unless you have magic. I mean, people complain about that. Why not complain about the second Death Star, the one where you could drive in the Millennium Falcon through its exhaust port? Like, you think the first one was a weakness? That's a weakness. That's an obvious one. And at least with that, you can just say, well, they were still building it, so maybe they would have put something in there to stop that. But, like with this, it just completely devalues that idea. And I get the feeling it was exactly for the reason I said, where people just assumed that that exhaust port was just an obvious weakness. So, let's roll with that. Maybe it was intended to be an obvious weakness. But it makes no sense. Completely devalues it. Completely. So that's my main gripe with it in terms of continuity, in terms of overall placement in the universe, right? So there are a few other things. These ones are a little more nitpicky, but well, actually, I'd argue that one of them is not nitpicky. It's very prominent and very noticeable. But all right, let's go with one. This one's just kind of funny. It was when they were, it was towards the end of the movie. There's this one character who can't use the Force. They explain this. He's this blind guy who can't use the Force. And, but he believes in it really, really hard. Which is kind of cool. It's unique. And he walks out onto a battlefield one point, and is just like chanting his mantra about believing in the Force. And as he's walking, none of the stormtroopers can hit him. And of course, like, we're supposed to be getting an idea, oh well, maybe the Force is helping him out or something. But I'm just thinking, wow, those stormtroopers are such bad shots, they can't shoot a blind man shuffling very slowly in a straight line. That's the impression I got. That was just something kind of funny, I thought I'd point out. So, now let's get to a different thing that really, really, really bugged me. This movie takes place immediately before A New Hope, and I do mean immediately. Like, A New Hope starts what couldn't have been more than a couple hours after this movie ends. Like, that kind of immediately. So of course, they include some of the characters from A New Hope in there. Including Darth Vader, yeah, I'll get to him in a bit. He's one of the other things. And you know, and this one character who should be pretty obvious. It's technically spoilers to say, because this person doesn't show up until the very, very end, but if you know how A New Hope begins, it's obvious this person will be there. And then the one that kind of... Oh, wait, before that, we also see, those two guys that were in the Mos Eisley Cantina, the ones that said, like, he doesn't like you. Like, those two? We saw them on this city, on this planet, that literally got destroyed later. And when I saw them for a second, I was like, wait, this is... Because they said, like, this is planet Jeddah or something. And I'm like, wait, is this supposed to be Tatooine then? Why are they here? I don't know. And then the city's destroyed, and I'm not sure how those guys could have gotten out of there, but apparently they did. I don't know, it was an odd spot for a cameo, that's all I'm pointing out. But they looked okay. And then there's Grand Moff Tarkin. Oh God. Oh God. Fire somebody. Please. I'm not sure how to break this. This is, okay, so, Grand Moff Tarkin, of course, Peter Welling, is that his name? Of course, he can't do the movie, but, he's super old anyway. So, oh God. I'm just gonna come right out and say it. In order to make this person, the person they got to play Grand Moff Tarkin, look exactly like Grand Moff Tarkin, they CGI his face. They make his entire face a CGI cartoon. And it looks bad. Really bad. Like, every time somebody's talking to him, it looks like an FMV game or something, like a modern FMV. And they're talking to some sort of character from Metal Gear or something, like a really well-animated CGI human, but still very clearly a CGI human. And, you know, they do this for the character at the very, very end, too, the one I'm not mentioning. They do this too, but at the very least, that person was literally on screen for a second, said one line, and then boom, credits. So, not that bad. Grand Moff Tarkin is in a ton of scenes, and they do close-ups on his face many, many times. And it looks so bad. Like, oh my god. And I looked up a picture of the guy who played him. He looks fine. You can put that guy in a bit of makeup and he'd look exactly like Grand Moff Tarkin. What is the point of making him look like a literal cartoon character in this? I know that it's an assumption among movies today that CGI is just awesome. And it is. It is awesome. And it can do a lot of things, but there is such a thing as the uncanny valley, you know, and that hasn't been breached yet. No matter how good the computers get, it cannot breach it. It might be impossible to breach that. It is very obvious this man is CGI. What I would have done if you really felt the need to, which I don't think was necessary, because as I said, the guy looks a lot like him anyway. Just not show him as much? Keep him in shadows or something? Instead of doing full close-ups on his face, they were proud of this. In fact, the only reason I can think of for why they would do all these close-ups is because I think he might be General Snook. Like, when they do close-ups of his face and stuff, his CGI face, especially his jawline, looks a lot like General or Emperor Snook from The Force Awakens. So maybe, like, that's supposed to be giving us a clue or something. If he isn't, then I really don't freaking know. I really don't. It's so bad. And here's a strange thing. You know the lady in A New Hope who announces that who announces like that they have the plans and that a bunch of boffins died for this. You know, the lady in the robe, basically, or the tunic, I should say. Like, she appears in this movie. She's played by a younger actress. They don't give her a CGI face. She has a normal face. And she looks fine. Like, we get it. She has a very unique costume, very unique hair, and they put it up that way, and it looks fine. Couldn't you do that for Grand Moff Tarkin? You got a guy that looks like him! What is the point? It looks more fake. It looks just as bad, in my opinion, as the young-faced Professor X and Magneto in that one X-Men movie. The one where Professor X looks like Mr. Clean. Like, it looks just as bad as that. What the fuck? It's so distracting. I can't pay attention to any word he says. But let's move on, Then of course, there's Darth Vader. Of course Darth Vader would be in this movie. That's what sells the most cereal boxes, so... He's okay. He's okay. And I don't know if this is honestly just because the movie's in higher quality or not, but... For some reason, Darth Vader looks more fake in this movie than he has in any of the others. Including at the very end of Empire, like he looks more clunky and fake than that. What I mean is that like his helmet and stuff, it looks like just a guy wearing a helmet. It doesn't even seem to connect to anything around this area. It just seems like some dude just put a helmet over his head, like somebody's wearing one of those Darth Vader voice mufflers or something, and not actually Darth Vader. In fact, I was wondering at the very first time if that was like a trick or something. Like Darth Vader was purposely sending out a body double or something. But no, that's him. And I don't know, it's just that one scene, but it bugs me. Like, it looks a lot like plastic helmet. And I guess in the original movies, yeah, it was plastic helmet, but maybe it's just because the film stock was lower quality than the digital stuff today, but, like, it just looked better. I think it just blended in more. I don't know, it could just be nostalgia speaking, but, like, it looked very unconvincing. I think it would have looked a lot worse if it was just a full CGI body, by the way, but still, isn't there something they could have done to make it look a little more metallic in some way? Or at least, like, tucked in that area, or something like that? It didn't look right. So, yeah. Let's see, have I gotten through everything? I got Grand Moff Tarkin, got, no Bothans, I got, Darth Vader, I got, the Force thing, and there was that fifth one, let's see, they, Tarkin, like, I don't know, I must have mentioned it at some point, because I'm not thinking of it. I'm probably gonna think of it after this video's over. If so, I'll leave it in the descriptions. But, so overall, the story does not feel necessary. It doesn't feel unique either. It's not just a blatant shot for shot of A New Hope, like The Force Awakens was. It's not kind of like that, but still, it feels shabby and corporate, if that makes any sense. Everything's so clean. Everything's, there needs to be a better way to explain this. We're introduced to a bunch of interesting characters. As I said, that guy who really strongly believes in the Force but can't use it and stuff, like. And then there's this guy who has this cool machine gun laser thing, and then there's this other guy who's in this big bulky suit, and he looks kind of like a Mad Max character almost, and he has this breathing apparatus and stuff. Like, it's cool, but we aren't, though they're introduced, and though they do have some cool moments, it never feels like they're full characters. Like, there's no real huge connection to this, and it makes it end up feeling a lot more like Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them than Star Wars, if that makes any sense. Like, there's no real connection going on. But as such, it's just okay. It's a fun action film. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be thinking too intensely about it, but I just did not walk away satisfied on any kind of, like, not on any super nerd level, definitely, but not really on an audience member level either. Like, just, it didn't have characters that were very connectable, and it didn't feel like its own movie. Despite being a spin-off, like, I feel if this was the very first Star Wars movie you saw, you might be really confused. So yeah. Like, I can imagine, like, if this were, like, its own standalone movie, people at the end would just be really confused, like, hey, how come, well, for one thing, they'd be complaining about the cliffhanger ending. And for the other, they'd be like, well, why are they calling it the Plant Destroyer when we only see it destroy cities? That seems weird. Or, why should I care about these people? Or, why are they paying special attention to these guys? Or why does that guy have has a CGI face? I can't get over that. It looks so bad. Can they release a special edition where they remove that? I'm all for that, but please, please, make a special edition of Rogue One where they remove the shit from Grand Moff Tarkin's face. So yeah. I guess if you want to see it, but there's not much to this. It's an okay action film. That's the bottom line. So until next time, I'm Glenn Dyer, and you have been watching a Dyer-Situation.